All right, we're now joined by Matt Kenseth, driver of the number 20 Home Depot Husky Toyota. Matt, you have 3 wins this year. You're third in points, and you won the Coca Cola 600 in your rookie year. Talk about your outlook heading into this weekend.
Well, I'm looking forward to the weekend. The 600's probably my favorite race of the year, favorite event. So looking forward to getting on the track today. Last weekend didn't go exactly as planned. So anyway, look forward to getting out there. Hopefully it'll stay dry, get some laps in this car, hopefully get qualified decent tonight, and then start working on the race on Saturday.
We'll open it up for questions. Just raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you. We'll start with Kenny over here.
Kenny Beck, WXII NBC up in the Piedmont Triad. Matt, could you talk about a 600-mile race, whether it's more grueling physically? Obviously, the weather this weekend, it's not going to be one of the hotter 600s, or grueling emotionally. I mean, you're on lap like 290, and you're like, oh, my God, we still have another 100 and some odd to go.
Maybe mentally. I hope not emotionally. If it's draining emotionally, he's got something going wrong probably. But, a little bit of both. Like you say about the weather, so I actually looked at the weather yesterday, and I saw it was supposed to be fairly cool on Sunday. And I was pretty excited about that. When the race starts and it's 90 degrees and you're solid sweat 100 miles in, it's going to be a long 600 miles, and you really got to work hard to stay hydrated and cool and ready for that. So I'd say it's a pretty good combination of both. I mean, I think that it's easier to be mentally weak when you're getting tired physically, or you've been sitting there a long time and you're hot, and you start thinking about other things other than focusing on the race. So I think it's probably equal, probably 50-50.
Go to Doug and then Marty.
Doug Rice, PRN. Matt, it's Memorial Day weekend, and there always has seemed to be a very strong allegiance between the NASCAR community and the military of the nation. Can you sort of speak to that a little bit, and why you think there is this great affinity between those two?
Well, I don't know if I can compare it to other sports necessarily. I mean, certainly there has always been that connection. You've seen several military sponsorships. You see a lot of the military members that are race fans, that come out and see us race. And I mean, from our side, I think it's pretty easy and pretty obvious. I mean, without the military and without all the people and all the sacrifices they make and all the things they do, we wouldn't have the freedom to be able to go out here and race, each and every weekend, in front of them. So, so I think it's a good weekend to try to show your appreciation for the military and all the people and the sacrifices they make. Although you should do it every day, but certainly this weekend I think is always good for that.
Marty.
Marty Smith, ESPN. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Marty. Like your shirt.
I'm fantastic. How are you, buddy? How would you describe Jimmy Johnson's career?
How would I describe his career? Do we have that much time? I mean, I wasn't really there in the beginning of it. When he started all the stuff in California, I don't really know a lot about that, his off-road background and all that. Certainly, first I heard of him was when he started running ASA, and then ran nationwide series against him there a little bit. But obviously, when he moved to Hendrick Motorsports and got hooked up with Chad Canales, I mean, that was the start of his dominance. So people can say whatever they want about him, but I don't know how you can't say he's not the best ever. I mean, you look at what he's done with Chad since they've been over here, and nobody's ever put up numbers like that. Nobody's ever won 5 championships in a row and probably never will. I mean, they're amazing. It's kind of cool to be part of that, because I think someday you look back at history and be like, oh, yeah, we raced against them. But another way, it kind of stinks because you get beat so many times, So, man, I just don't know. I don't know how anybody can argue and say he's not. Them guys aren't the best of all time.
Alan.
Alan Cavana, NASCAR.com. We've seen you run up front and get wins just about every track this season. In the All-Star race, we didn't see that much of your car up front. What do you want to work on today, and are you confident for the 600?
Yeah, I feel really good about this weekend, honestly. Last weekend we were off a little bit. I think we have some ideas maybe, what we missed or, what we did wrong. I think that was probably part of learning. I feel like we learned a lot last weekend. So I feel good about it. We hope to do a little bit better last weekend, but it is a very unique race. You know, the All-Star race is totally different. It's not really, I don't think it really means a ton for the 600. I think there's things you can learn about the track and changes in traffic and so on and so forth, but certainly it's a very different race. 20 laps is our longest run last Saturday, where I would assume we're going to have several fuel runs during the 600. Very different track conditions, at least to get started. So I feel good about it. I'm anxious to get on track today and seeing if our car drives better than it drove last weekend. We made some changes and have some different things, you know, to come back with that we feel like is going to be better. So I'm interested to get on the track and see if that holds true.
David?
Yeah, David Newton, ESPN.com. Matt, why is this one of your favorite races, and does it work to your advantage that you're kind of a patient guy and that you got a lot
of patience with you, Dave?
Oh, I know, but I mean, because the track changes so much from day to night that you got to, you know, not panic early. So I mean, but what makes this your favorite track?
That wasn't one of my best jokes, was it? I don't know. The 600's always been unique. I mean, we have our first win here, so maybe that's part of it. This is the first track I ever made. I made my first nationwide start of this track. I have more miles here than any other track, you know, on the circuit. So you only race here. You only race a 600-mile race once a year, Memorial Day weekend. Just a lot of different things. The track goes through huge changes. You know, typically it's very different in the beginning of the race when the sun is still out. It's usually hot and slick, and then at the end of the race, after 4 hours of racing or 4.5 hours of racing, the track is as fast as it's ever going to be, and you know everybody picks up a second, and then it's on. You know, it's like you wait 4.5 hours to run a trophy dash. So it's just a fun event. A lot goes on. You got to pay attention for a long time, really keep up with the track and your adjustments, and just one that I look forward to. Look forward to the challenge.
David Carville on NASCAR.com. Matt, if it's much cooler here at the start of the race than usual, does that mitigate how much the car changes as we go from day to night?
Yeah, I think it will a little bit. Certainly the sun has a lot to do with it, but certainly temperature as well. So when you get you know, if we don't get any more rain and you get all the rubber back on the track and the sun is on it, I think it'll still be really slick when the race starts because it's supposed to be sunny. But certainly being cooler will help. You know, the cooler it gets here to a point, you know, you have more grip, and the hotter it is when the sun is out, you have, you know, less grip, and the track seems to change a lot.
Pete Iacobelli with Associated Press. Matt, how do you balance the start that you've had to this season with the long months ahead that's remain in racing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you basically, you know, always try to take it one race at a time. I think if things go good or they go bad, when you get done with, you know, Monday going through, you know, everything and talking about everything and what you want to work on, what you did good, what you did bad, all that stuff, you try to learn what you can from it, get it behind you, and move on to the next week. You know, whether it was a great week or a terrible week, I think you always have to, you know, get focused on, you know, what's coming next. You know, keep working on trying to get better. So, I think that's about it. I mean, I think you just, you know, it's a long season. All of us have been through it for a long time, and you know, you have to enjoy. You know, when things go good and you get a win, you certainly need to enjoy it. You need to learn how to enjoy it, but you also have to, unfortunately, get it behind you. You know, by Monday or Tuesday or whatever, and really get, you know, focused on the next week.
Ryan?
Hey, Matt. Ryan McGee, ESPN, over here. Hey. We always ask about title contenders and chase and all that stuff, and a lot of drivers and teams like to say, wait till we get to the end of May. We're there now. Is this the time of year where you kind of know what you have versus which maybe you thought you had a month ago or a month from now?
You know, I think it constantly changes. I mean, I think the other teams are always getting better, and you got to make sure you continue to get better, you know, along with them. Now, certainly, you know, you kind of, you know, you get to Easter break and you have a few races, and you can kind of look at through all the different tracks and kind of feel, you know, kind of get a feel for where you're at compared to the competition. And certainly, I think the All-Star break's another chance for that. And then we only have one other, you know, one last off weekend in July, you know, to kind of get a snapshot of that. So, you know, it's still a long ways from the chase or trying to run for a championship. You know, you feel good about where we're at today, but there's still a lot of racing to do. I think we've done a lot of things really, really good this first 11 races, but I also think there's room for improvement and room for us to grow as a team, me to grow as a driver, to continue to try to get better.
Go to Brian.
Brian Nelson, Motor Racing Network. Matt, I mean, your record at Dover is pretty awesome. How is that a track where you need to race the track first, and when you succeed there, do you leave feeling like you've really beaten something?
Well, typically this is, probably two of my favorite weeks of the whole season. Running the 600 and then going to Dover. This has usually been my favorite event or favorite race, and Dover's always been my favorite track. So those are two tracks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks really in racing. And even if you go back to Darlington, good month, that's always typically been decent for us, and one that I always enjoy going to, and usually have a good chance of having a good performance. So Dover it's really unique. It's one of those tracks you really have to attack, and it's also one of those tracks that's it's difficult to get a fast lap around there by yourself. You're real on the edge, and then when you put everybody else out there and you have to race them at the same time, it makes it real interesting. So, I've always really enjoyed that. Whenever you can get a good run at a track you really, really like, you always feel good about that. But it is one that I look forward to.
Viv?
Viv Bernstein, New York Times. Sorry, I can't see over here. When Brad won the Cup at the awards ceremony, he said, "I want to be your leader." And I'm wondering, is he a leader now to drivers in the garage?
Nah, I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, if he's called any meetings to order, I wasn't invited to him, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what that all means. I mean, Brad is very, obviously, is very opinionated, and he has definitely his own ideas. I'm sure some of his ideas are shared by some, not shared by all necessarily. I think that's a good thing. I think that's what makes Brad Brad. I think everybody is different in a sport, and different personalities I think are important and good. But I don't know what the leader means. I know he's not my leader. So I mean, I don't know if he's a leader of the drivers. I mean, I think being the champion, he's probably maybe your opinion carries more weight, or more people are listening to what you're saying because you're the champion, maybe compared to somebody who's not.
Mike?
Mike Solarte, News 14 right here. 400 laps, 600 miles. You've won this race. You know what it takes to get to victory lane, but how thin is the margin of error in this race, because it is such a long race, and on the flip side of that, just exactly how difficult is it to win this race because it is so long and so demanding?
Well, they're all really hard to win. I haven't been to one that's been easy, so I mean they're all hard. I mean, certainly that extra 100 miles adds a different dynamic to the race. It depends how your car is driving. It depends what the weather conditions are. But to me, especially, you probably are assuming there's going to be some long green flag runs. So it's always a challenge to get your car good enough in the beginning of the race to stay in the lead lap and to stay in a decent position up front somewhere, and still have your car where it needs to be at the end of the race to try to challenge for a win. When the track is dark and it's 9 o'clock at night or whatever, and it's time to go grab the win. So it's tough to balance that. There's been times here we started off just awful during the day and had a hard time hanging on the lead lap and been really good at that. And there's been times we've done it the other way around. It's just hard to find that balance, to be reasonable enough in the beginning to be competitive and have a car that can have a shot at the win at the end.
Dustin, and we'll finish up with Jeff.
Dustin Long, Motor Racing Network. Matt, can you give me a sense of when you're in the car, what are the things that you're thinking about, the mind process through the event, through the runs, and are there any particular additional challenges as you go through that process here because of the day to night type of thing? I'm just trying to get inside your head a little bit, and what you're thinking and how process that your information, and if it's any more different here than anywhere else.
It's a scary place. You sure you want to get in there? Yeah, I mean, there's occasions, during a race where maybe your mind will wander, and you think about different things depending on the situation that you're in, So, the main thing I always try to do is try to look ahead, especially in this race, and try to stay on top of, the track changes, what your car's handling like in traffic, what it's doing this run. Try to report as often as you can, what's going on with your car, just all aspects of it. Really just try to keep your mind focused on that and what you need to do next. As far as car changes, try to focus on what everybody's doing on the racetrack for their lines or how to get the most speed out of the car. So really I just try to, you don't really have to try that hard, but really just keep your mind, on the race and all things in the race. So you kind of always know what's going on and you feel like you're really, really plugged into that. Well, there's been times that I've been told that maybe I worry about more than I should necessarily, but I just like to always know what's going on. I like information. I always have, and I just like knowing pretty much everything that's going on in the race. Maybe not everything, but I like knowing. I'd rather err on knowing too much than not enough, just so I can feel like I kind of got a sense for how the race is going and what the trends are and what's kind of happening all around me.
Jeff.
I didn't let you all the way in. That's why it was pretty easy.
Jeff Owen, Sporting News. Matt, this time of year, everybody's typically looking for the guy that can beat Jimmy or at least push him for the championship. Based on your hot start right now, you would appear to be the guy with 3 wins and doing great. How does it feel to be that guy this early in the year, and do you think you are in that position?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing you hit there is it's early in the year. I mean, I think that, we could talk about it again in August, late August, and kind of get a better feel for where you're at that point compared to where everybody else is at. And, hopefully we'll be able to win some more races before that. And hopefully we'll be able to run like we did to start this year off or improve a little bit. And we can be in that conversation and be one of them guys. But, man, to sit here in May before the 600, talk about who's going to run for a championship. I mean, there's a lot can happen here in the next 3.5, 4 months before it gets time.